Dave Ramsey is just wrong. His age-old advice about starting with just a $1,000 baby emergency fund while paying off debt is simply just not going to cut it in 2022. And here's why. Now, before all the Dave Ramsey fans come for me, hear me out just 1 second. I do believe he gives solid advice about getting out of debt so you have more cash flow in the future for investing and saving and living life and just all the things. But his point about having a baby emergency fund is so that you don't go into more debt and basically backtrack while you're trying to get yourself out of debt. You're supposed to have the cash flow to cover an emergency if it happens. For example, this $1,000 emergency fund figure may assume that you're a renter and can call a landlord a repairman if things break around your house and you need housing repairs. But what if you actually own the home you live in? Unfortunately, the repairs are on you. And there are not many housing repairs that cost $1,000 or less. Take into account hot water heaters that are leaking and need to be repaired, or heating and air units. Hot water heaters can cost anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 or more, which is one thing I recently faced. Other things you may need, a roof repairs or heating and air units can be really expensive, ranging from $5,000 to even $10,000. Even if something is covered by your homeowner's insurance, most deductibles are likely going to be over $1,000. Do you know how much your deductible is? So this Better Homes and Gardens article reports that spending on emergency repairs is up 42%. Yikes. That is 42%, with an average of $2,231 spent per household. Now, this article even goes on to say that that's the average and that someone living in a higher cost of living area will experience higher repair costs than that. So, serious question. Do you know how much your health insurance deductible is? While most of us are relatively healthy and generally only have to pay our $25 copay for regular checkups at the doctor, deductibles for health insurance do kick in when you start having tests like x-rays, MRIs, or even, gosh forbid, you have to have a surgery. Could you cover your deductible if you needed to? Some hospitals will not see you until you've actually paid your deductible and your responsibility up front. I would not want my health to be limited because I didn't have enough emergency fund. So paying off debt and becoming debt-free becomes such a long process for many of us and can span more than a year time frame. Those of us with lots of debt can take 3 to 5 years or more to fully pay it off unless we have very high incomes. With time frames like this, it's not asking if an emergency will happen to you, but when will it happen to you? Because of this, many people following Dave Ramsey's advice end up having to take out loans and even more debt and go back into debt as soon as they have just one emergency happen to them because they didn't have enough cash savings to cover it. I know I don't want to be in that position. Due to the pandemic and stimulus and all the crazy things that have happened in the last 2 years in the United States, inflation is currently on the rise for 2022 at a faster rate than it has been in a very long time. Dave Ramsey has been in business for a long time, so maybe when he started his business, that $1,000 would cover most emergencies. But in today's world, it just doesn't cut it. That information is so outdated. You would need at least $3,000 saved in an emergency fund to cover most emergencies while you're paying off debt. One caution we need to talk about, though, is where you keep your emergency fund. Now, people might be tempted to invest it, to grow it, to outpace inflation. However, there are just a few issues with that. The biggest issue being that you don't want to experience an emergency and have to cash out your emergency fund when the stock market is down and crashing. The point of investing is to leave it and let it grow, and you definitely don't want to have to take a loss just because you need your money. You don't ever want to be in a position where you're forced to take it out at the wrong time. Secondly, cashing out investments, if you've ever done it, takes several days, sometimes up to a week. You have to sell your investments, and most of the time you have to let that transaction settle, which takes 1 to 2 business days, before you can then transfer the money from the investment account over to your regular checking or savings account, which then takes a few more business days. Depending on what kind of emergency you may have, you may not want to wait all those days. I know I would not want to go days or weeks without heat in the middle of the winter if my heating and air broke. Really, the best thing to do with an emergency fund is just keep it in a plain Jane savings account and make sure that savings account is attached to your checking account or an ATM debit card so you can get it out quickly. You really just want to have instant access to this money in case of an emergency, even on the weekends when the bank may not be open. Investments should definitely be kept separate from the emergency fund. Once you get all of your debt paid, it's recommended that you save 3 to 6 months of expenses in a savings account for your fully funded emergency fund. I do agree with that advice that Dave Ramsey gives, and I do personally plan to err on the side of caution there and save 6 months when I get to that point. Personally, I have debt that I would love to pay off, but I'm also working on saving an emergency fund first of at least $5,000, and I feel most comfortable with this because I'm a homeowner and my house is 19 years old, and as I recently discovered, my heating and air unit will need to be replaced sooner rather than later. So I'm choosing to save $5,000 versus about $3,000 because I know the heating and air units are expensive. As long as I'm making monthly minimum payments on all of my debt right now, it's not hurting anything. It's going to take me a little bit longer to get out of debt, but at least I won't have to take out an additional loan when things break in my house and I do have an emergency. Currently, I have $2,500 saved towards my $5,000 baby emergency fund goal. This is just one of my financial goals for 2022. If you'd like to see videos on my personal financial journey, please let me know in the comments down below or just comment something down below. Let's hang out, chat, and become online friends. What is your take on emergency funds? Are you currently saving or do you already have your emergency fund saved? Let us know. If you've made it all the way to this point in the video, I want to say thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Also, if you want to hang out and become friends, there will be other videos coming up on the side of your screen. Please hang around and check them out.